Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to seek your good wishes and your blessings. So we continue with the 6th canto, nearly finishing it now, 16th chapter. And we can do this verse together.
Chitraketu vacha Ajita jita samamatalpi Sadhubi bhavanjitadma bhavata Vijitaste picha bhajatam Akamatmanam ya atmabdo ati karuna. Chitraketu said, O unconquerable Lord, although you cannot be conquered by anyone, you are certainly conquered by devotees who have control of the senses and mind and senses. They can keep you under their control because you are causelessly merciful to devotees who desire no material profit from you. Indeed, you give yourself to them, and because of this, you also have full control over your devotees.
This is Chitraketu. Very, very nice verse. We'll see it at the end. How the devotees can keep the Lord under their control. Because they don't have
controls that.
Because they don't have material desires. Okay. So this chapter 16 is called King Chitraketu Meets the Supreme Lord. So, very interesting pastime. As we talked about on Friday, how the son of Chitraketu passed away, and there was a lot of lamentation. And at that time, Narad Muni and Angira Maharaj came, and they instructed Chitraketu and everybody else. But Chitraketu responded really well because he was a natural devotee. So he understood the instructions immediately from Angira, from Narad Muni. But the other relatives were not so out of that illusion. So seeing that it was difficult to stop the illusion of the grieving relatives, by his mystic power, Narad brought the dead child to life and said to him, this is quite interesting, just see your grieving parents, accept the royal throne and live your life. So effectively he was saying, you've left prematurely, come back into your body and take your position as a child again. So the soul returned into the body of the child, baby body, and he replied, according to the results of my fruitive activities, I, the living entity, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going into the species of the demigods, sometimes the species of the lower animals, sometimes amongst the vegetables, and sometimes to the human species. Therefore, in which birth were these my mother and father? So this is really hard-hitting question. And then he says, no one is actually my mother and father. How can I accept these two people as my parents? So it said that actually Narad Muni was speaking through this child, through this living entity. But these are fundamental points. So I just wanted to go back a bit. There you go. I forgot to put that picture from Friday in the right place. So this is the Narad Muni calling the child again. Come back, take your position, and again become the child of your parents. Why did you leave prematurely? So these are the questions put to the child by Narad Muni. And there's Angira. So let's resume. So the child asks the question, in which birth were these my mother and father? I've been in so many species of life. As devata, sometimes in the lower animals, bodies, as vegetables, sometimes in the human species. So how can I accept these two as my parents? In this world, no one is permanently related, just as gold passes amongst business people. So this is an interesting example that this entity called gold will pass from one person to another person. Nobody can really claim it belongs to them because it's always moving. It's the same with the spirit soul. It's always moving from one species to another, from one set of parents to another set of parents. Nobody can claim ownership. The child continues, it is the body that is born and dies, not the soul. Therefore, the soul has no relationship with so-called mothers and fathers. Again, this is really hard hitting. Has no relationship with so-called mothers and fathers. So we understand that the relationship is temporary, hence why it's got no value in one sense. Of course, if the mother and father are devotees and bring that child up as devotee, then that's the mother and father doing their duty. And that has a lot of value. The soul never takes birth nor dies. For the soul, no one is dear, nor is anyone unfavorable. He is but an observer of different qualities of men. The Supreme Lord is independent, and the soul is as his part and parcel, shares his qualities in minute quantity. So this is a very important point to understand, that we are part and parcel of God, but we are tiny parts and parcels of God. God is the supreme, all absolute truth. It's completely spiritual. We are spiritual as well, but we're very tiny. He's huge. He's humongous. And he's the controller. We are the controlled. He's the enjoyer, and we are the enjoyed. But in this relationship, like we saw in the verse that Chitraketu spoke, actually, even this little tiny minute living entity can control the Almighty. So that's very, very interesting. It's a very interesting dynamics between the Supreme Lord and the Jivatma. But this is the actual position. He's independent, and the soul as his part shares his qualities in minute quantity. So Chitraketu becomes free from illusion. After the soul again left the body of the child, Chitraketu and his relatives were astonished and cut off their affection, giving up their lamentation. Ashamed, the wives who had poisoned the child lost their bodily luster and went to bathe in the Yamuna to atone for their sins, giving up their ambition of having children. Chitraketu became free from illusion of happiness in family life and offered respects to Narad and Angira. Narad then gave Chitraketu mantras glorifying the Lord as Chaturvyuha. And this is the mantra. Om Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumnaya Nirudhaya Nama Sankarasaraya Cha.
O Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, who are addressed by the Omkar, Pranava, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you, O Lord Vasudev, I meditate upon you, Lord Pradyumna, Lord Anirudh, and Lord Shankishan. I offer you my respectful obeisances.
Narad explains the position of the Lord as the supreme controller of the senses, source of unlimited forms, and the source of also the impersonal Brahman. He is unapproachable by words and mind of the conditioned soul. When infused with a particle of consciousness, the body, senses, living force, mind, intelligence, all, though material, can function in their activities. Narad offers obeisances to the Lord, whose lotus feet are massaged by pure devotees. So then Chitraketu chants the mantra. After Narad and Angira Muni left for Brahmalok, Chitraketu fasted and drank only water for 1 week, carefully chanting the mantra given to him. After 1 week, he became the king of the Vidyadharas. And that's a side effect of his spiritual advancement. That was something given to him as petty cash, maybe, side effect of his devotion. And we'll see later how the Lord takes that away from him as well, because he becomes an obstacle. Within a few days, Chitraketu, with an increasingly enlightened mind, attained shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadev, Shankarshan. He saw the Lord as whitish, dressed in bluish garments, with smiling face and reddish eyes. He was surrounded by exalted, liberated souls like the 4 Kumaras. There we go again. As tears of love fell from his eyes, Chitraketu's eyes, washing the Lord's lotus feet, Chitraketu was at first unable to offer any prayers, as his voice was choked with ecstasy. Finally, he recovers his speech and he offered prayers to the Lord. So this is what he saw. Magnificent. And the 4 Kumaras are there. There's Chitraketu. Very fortunate. He prayed, "O unconquerable Lord, you are conquered by the devotees who have no material desires." So that's the verse that we were looking at, verse 34. You exist in the beginning, in the beginning, middle, and at the end of everything, though you have no beginning, middle, or end. You are called Ananta because unlimited universes exist within you. So this Lord is actually Sankarasan or Ananta, and his complexion is white. Very interesting. Like Balaram, yeah, that's right. Animal-like men thirst for sense enjoyment, worship various demigods, but not you. However, the benedictions received from those demigods are destroyed when the demigods are destroyed. So they're temporary. This is a really interesting point, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that those who worship the demigods, they go to the demigods. And those who worship the demigods get fruits which are temporary and limited. So here he's saying those who worship the demigods, if they receive benediction, those benedictions are destroyed when the demigods are destroyed. Interesting. Okay. Even motivated worship to you destroys samsara. Samsara means birth and death, the cycle of samsara, birth and death. Devotees who have no desires accept the process of Bhagavad Dharma, which is the philosophy of the Srimad Bhagavatam, to achieve shelter at your lotus feet. They are all Krishna conscious, thinking that there are Krishnas and Krishna is theirs. My obeisance is to you, who all the universe is on your head, like a bunch of mustard seeds. So it's a really nice prayers, beautiful prayers, sweet prayers. Lord Anantadev spoke, because you have followed Narad's instructions, you have now attained perfection in transcendental knowledge and are able to see me. I appear in 2 transcendental forms, which are not material, the deity and the transcendental sounds, the holy name, the mantras, the scriptures. So he himself is saying this is where he is. He appears in those 2 places. The jiva thinks he is the enjoyer of the material world, and the material world is expanded as a source of enjoyment for the jiva. Since this material world and the living entities are both my energies, I pervade them, and they both rest in me. Then he encourages him. And he encourages us as well. A human being born in Bharatvarsh, which is where we are, Bharatvarsh is the whole world, can attain perfection through the Vedic literatures and its practical application. So this Bhagavad Puran is described to be a natural commentary on the Vedas. So it is the essence of the Vedas. So just studying the Bhagavatam, we are actually accessing the Vedic literatures, the essence of the Vedic literatures, which is Bhakti Yoga. In such a position, if one doesn't attain self-realization, it is not possible in any other position. So if we can't do it now, we're never going to do it. This is our moment. This is our chance. A husband and wife plan together for happiness, but because they have material desires, they only get unhappiness. So this was his final instruction, I think. Oh no, good, here's a bit more. So then he explains how one can become a devotee. This is Anantadev to Chitraketu. So these are the various ways. Understand that the activities of persons who are proud of their material experience bring only results contradictory to those persons, to those such persons conceive while awake, sleeping, and deeply sleeping. So, just trying to understand what I wrote. Understand that the spiritual soul, although very difficult for the materialist to perceive, is above all these conditions. So the spirit soul is above waking, sleeping, deeply sleeping, and things are conceived whilst we are awake, even sleeping. Dreams come into our minds and we become proud of our material experience. But actually, we should understand that we are above all these conditions, above the material experiences. The strength of one's discrimination. So how should one become a devotee? The strength of one's determination. One should give up the desire for fruitive results in the present life and in the next. Become experienced in transcendental knowledge. So these are four things Anantadev identifies. Knowledge, determination, understanding. Discrimination, yeah. Give up the desire for fruitive activities. Understand that we are above the material experiences that we're going through while awake, sleeping, etc. The Supreme Absolute Person and the living entity are one in quality in their relationship as part and whole. One who knows this and applies it to his life can attain the Supreme Lord's abode. So if we can understand that we are part and parcel of God, we're meant to be with him, that's a really strong step forward. O King, if you accept this conclusion of mine, being unattached to material enjoyment, adhering to me with great faith, and thus becoming proficient and fully aware of knowledge and its practical application in life, you will achieve the highest perfection by attaining me. Sukadev Goswami continued, after thus instructing Chitraketu and assuring him of perfection in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Spiritual Master, the Supreme Soul, Sankarasan, disappeared from that place as Chitraketu looked on. So that's the end of chapter 60. Any questions, any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Very profound chapter, isn't it?
Very profound chapter.
Who are you? Who are my mother,
Yeah.
mother and father? I've been there before. So many different things. We know this, but it's putting and understanding it, isn't it?
Yeah, put it into practice.
Put it into practice and realize that is one of the realizations I had. That we have to put it into practice and think about it.
Yeah. At least the gyan is there. We have to make it into vigyan.
Yes.
So knowledge is there, making it to wisdom
Yes.
by practical experience.
If we can do that, we can find our own happiness.
Yeah.
Because
Peace and happiness.
it's not only mother, father, but I think relationship with everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sister, parents, husband, wife, whatever. But we have to find that connection, and then we can be very happy.
Yeah. Otherwise, we are stuck here.
As you said that a husband and the wife, they're trying to, because of their desires, they'll always find unhappiness.
That's correct.
Very pronounced. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you for sharing, Naniven. But you absolutely
Very hard to understand all this.
Yes, it is.
My brains are not working overtime today.
In one sense, it's hard. That's why what Narad Muni did, he did the practical example. He brought the soul back into the body of the child, and he said to the child that, "Go, why have you left prematurely? They're your parents. Come back again, become their child." It's a very practical explanation. Then the child, he spoke in front of everybody that, "Who are you talking about? I've had so many parents in the past, so many fathers and mothers. Which father and mother are you talking about?" Exactly.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
This is really hard hitting.
Yeah.
This example is very practical for us to understand.
I only know my mother now.
Yeah, but you don't know the previous mothers.
No.
And this is what the soul said, this child said. "I've had mothers as humans, demigods, animals, vegetables."
That's true.
Which mother and father are you talking about? So we shouldn't be too attached. This is my mother. Of course, it doesn't mean we lose the affection. We don't become hard-hearted. Hey, mother calls you. Who are you? You know my mother. I've had so many mothers in the past.
Yeah, that's
how are we going in a little crazy direction?
Yeah, thank you.
It's the understanding.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Oh,
Then if you if you tell your mother who are you, she will tell you get out of my house. So
Practical
it is
experience.
it is not hard to understand, but it is hard to accept it, because Srila Prabhupada put it so nicely in English for everyone to understand, but it's hard to accept. We cannot accept, because we are human beings. We're on the platform of material life, so it's hard for us to accept it. So once we accept it, then we will see, no, it's not difficult to understand. Yeah.
And one can actually put it into practice. So if one time we have a challenging situation before us, maybe just reflect on that challenging situation. Actually, hang on a minute. How important is this matter to me?
Haribol?
Hare Krishna.
I think Krishna has done us a favor that we don't remember all the parents, mothers, and fathers. Otherwise, be chaotic in our brains.
Yeah,
It would be difficult to comprehend, and I don't think people have got that sort of acceptance. I mean, accepting one set of parents is bad enough. Can you imagine the past few to cope with, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow us to remember the past.
Because you could have been enemies. You could have been each other's throats.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe Krishna has done us a favor that we don't remember the past lives. I mean, for my example, I don't think it would have been easy for me to remember all the past life and see what went on. And obviously, Prabhupada has made it so simple to just say, you become a good devotee and serve the Lord, and things would be easier. Thank you.
Yes, in that sense, the philosophy is very straightforward. You're absolutely right. But it's so straightforward that you could almost miss it. So,
but the only thing you have to remember is you don't lose that compassion. Not just for your relations, but everyone. It starts at home, like they say, charity begins at home. Have to be compassionate to your relatives. Try and bring them into Krishna consciousness as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you can always try, but again, if they're not destined to have Krishna in their life, no matter how hard you try, it won't happen. So I think it's win-win or lose-lose situation.
No, it's always a win-win for
Hmm.
devotees. It's like when you're on the street, you hold out your hand.
You
Oh, yeah.
plant that seed.
You hold out the hand.
Mm.
If it's taken or not, that's not up to you. That's between the Lord and that
Yeah.
Jivatma.
Correct, yeah.
You've done your duty, which is to hold out the book and say, please
Mm.
take this.
Yeah,
So
thank
same
you.
with the relatives, just give the opportunity. It's up to them. If Krishna wants, it'll happen. If he doesn't want, it won't happen.
Mm. Yeah, because you got your example of your sister here. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've tried over many years, and the seed had been planted, and now it's fructifying.
Fructifying, yeah.
Yeah, that's it brings tears to my eyes. Thank you. Haribo.
Sorry, Aruna?
30 years ago, she tried. Well,
Is that all? 30 years is nothing in this grand scheme of times. So no problem. You've perfectly timed it.
it must have been planted somewhere.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deeply planted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, we can move into chapter 17. So this is verse 28.
Narayana para sarve nakutashkana bibiyati swarga pavarga narakshayo api tulyatha darshina.
Can I read?
Yes.
Okay, translation. Devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord.
This is it. This is where Vritrasura was. This is where also Chitraketu is. Never fear, no fear, because they just want to serve. Whether it's here, whether it's hell, heaven, or in the spiritual world, it doesn't matter. Wherever they are, actually, that's the spiritual world. These are really rare souls, I have to say. Prabhupada is that soul. Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting as well. This part of the Bhagavatam is the most phenomenal part. Mother Parvati curses Chitraketu. That's the title of the chapter. Chitraketu criticizes Shiva. Chitraketu then began traveling in outer space. So he became self-realized, right? He achieved the darshan of the Supreme Lord who blessed him. He was then also the head of the Vidyadharas. Vidyadharas are like heavenly personalities. With bodily strength and senses free from deterioration, he traveled within the valleys of Sumeru mountain, enjoying life with the women of Vidyadhara Loka by chanting the glories of the holy name of Supreme Lord Hari. And this was for a very long time. I've forgotten to put, it was millions of years. Long period of time. And extraordinarily, he's associating with the women, but they're chanting the glories of the holy name. But yet, still, the Lord detected that although he is self-realized, too much association with enjoyment in this material world can a little bit mislead you, even a pure devotee. So one time, while King Chitraketu was in outer space on a brilliantly effulgent aeroplane given to him by Lord Vishnu, he saw Lord Shiva surrounded by Siddhas and Charanas. That includes Narad, that includes the four Kumaras. Lord Shiva was sitting in an assembly of great saintly persons and embracing Parvati on his lap with his arm, which is really extraordinary. So Chitraketu, he laughed loudly and spoke within the hearing of Parvati, expressing his wonder that Shiva would do such a thing in the saintly assembly. He didn't mean to insult Lord Shiva, no way. But he was just amazed. Wow, this is extraordinary there's so many incredible sages seated, Narad, and so many others. And there's Lord Shiva with Parvati on his lap, preaching to them how to become detached from material life. So he was just flabbergasted. There he is. But he happened to make a comment. And upon hearing Chitraketu, as he did not intend any offense, Lord Shiva and his followers smiled. Otherwise, you can bet your life. His followers, Nandi and all of the others, they would have taken up their trident and thrown it at Chitraketu. But they knew Chitraketu was not insulting Lord Shiva. So they remained silent, as did Lord Shiva. However, there was some pride in Chitraketu, thinking that he was a better controller of the senses than Shiva. Some little pride. So Parvati detected that pride. Thanks to the Supreme Lord, she became angry, stating that Chitraketu seems to have surpassed even the demigods and the sages, regards what is dharma, and he's thinking himself a great devotee. Parvati calling Chitraketu as her son. So she cursed him, but she said, Putra. So this is not a curse. This is a blessing, because she's calling him my son. So in order to increase his prema for the Lord and reduce his pride, cursed him to take birth in a demoniac family. So this is Vritrasura. This is how Vritrasura appears. When Chitraketu was cursed, he descended from this aeroplane. He bowed before Parvati with humility and pleased her. Chitraketu said, I accept this curse, for living entities suffer and enjoy due to their past deeds. The demigods simply give them happiness and distress accordingly. So the Lord actually had a hand in this. He wanted Chitraketu to return to Vaikuntha as soon as possible, away from the Vidyadharas, away from this material world. So out of fatherly affection, he inspired Parvati to curse him. And there were many reasons for this, to show the strength of a devotee in seeing curses, blessings, heaven, hell on an equal platform. And this is exactly what Chitraketu did. So it shows the strength, the great strength of a devotee. Infallible. He removed the improper life of Chitraketu as leader of the Vidyadharas. A lot of association there with those who are not necessarily devotees, pure devotees. So he removed that obstacle from Chitraketu's life. And he also increased Chitraketu's hunger for prema through the fire of separation. Finally bestowed upon him the great sweetness of direct service in Vaikuntha. So he wanted him back in his in the spiritual world. Chitraketu continued, it is the Lord only who creates happiness and distress for the continuation of the materialistic way of life for the living entity. So someone may ask, does the Lord favor some jivas and hate others? So Chitraketu explains that the Supreme Lord is equally disposed towards all living entities. Therefore, no one is dear to him. No one is a great enemy for him. No one is his friend. No one is his relative. Being unattached to the material world, he has no affection for so-called happiness or hatred for so-called distress or so-called distress. Chitraketu begs pardon from Parvati and left in his airplane, to the astonishment of Shiva and Parvati. Because he could have counteracted. He could have cursed her back. He could have done so many things. But he didn't, showing the strength of a devotee. Lord Shiva said to Parvati in the presence of the assembled sages, just see the greatness of the Vaishnavas, who are servants of Hari. Engaged in devotional service, they are fearless, considering heaven, hell, and liberation as all the same. So that's the verse that we read. Because of their perfect knowledge and detachment, they're not interested in so-called happiness and distress of this world. So then Lord Shiva compares himself. Like me, Chitraketu is a dear devotee of the Lord, equal to all living entities and free from attachment and hatred. And then he describes the greatness of devotees. Lord Shiva indicated that Parvati is beautiful, but the beauty of the devotee is greater. Extraordinary. Vishnu caused Parvati to be offended and utter a curse, but he showed the greatness of his devotee, whose prema did not decrease. He remained steady, even when he cursed. A lot to learn from this pastime, a lot to learn. Parvati's curse did not give the slightest unhappiness to Chitraketu, which means the curse was powerless, had no impact on Chitraketu. Parvati was pacified when she heard her husband's speech. Chitraketu could have cursed Parvati in return, but instead he humbly accepted her curse. Then it took birth as the demon Vrittasura. If one hears this history of Chitraketu from a pure devotee, Prabhupada, the listener will be freed from the conditioned life of material existence. One who rises early in the morning, recites the history of Chitraketu, controlling his words and mind, remembering the Supreme Lord, will return back to Godhead. So this is a fantastic chapter, fantastic pastimes. For me, I must say, these pastimes give me a lot of relief. Keep remembering them, gives a lot of relief. Any questions, any comments?
Prabhuji, yes. After reading about Jad Bharat and Bharat Maharaj, I try to, not always, but as when I remember them during the day or whenever. Now I think I will add Chitraketus to my.
Yeah, that's very nice, actually. Yeah.
I also remember Rishabh Dev.
Yes.
Try to remember these names.
Yes, that's really good. It's really good. Maybe what we can do is have a collage of pictures. We get somebody to put together a collage of pictures of the different pastimes in the Bhagavatam, and just looking at that collage will give us immediate remembrance of these pastimes. Yeah, we'll try to do that. Maybe Chitra.
I was thinking so.
Oh, yeah, okay. Chitra, maybe that's a task that you could take on. All these different pictures, put it in a nice.
It's Prabhu.
Yeah.
I was telling her the same thing.
Oh, really? Wow, that's amazing, huh?
As you were talking, I was telling her the same thing.
Wow. And Jayanti was thinking the same thing. So.
Because she loves designing. So.
And this will help us a lot, actually. Yeah, good suggestion. I mean, good point, Nani Ben. Thank you for sharing what you just shared. Riyaj.
Raj, I will also take some pics to show. I will try.
You will what?
Do something.
I will try.
Okay, good.
He wants to do it too.
Good. Yeah, you do it as well. There's not enough collages anyway. So many pastimes. Very good. Thank you, Riyaj. Good boy. Anybody else? Otherwise, we can move to the lessons. But these are really phenomenal pastimes. This is what Bhagavatam is. This is the most incredible aspect of Bhagavatam. So, Indulekamaji, would you like to go through the lessons?
Hare Krishna. Yes, please. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Lesson from Canto 6, Chapter 1. To avoid the hellish planet, where there are terrible sufferings, we must atone for the sins committed within mind, words, and body before we leave this present body. Chapter 2. The holy name is so powerful that even if one chants imperfectly, one can get liberation due to the causeless mercy of the Lord. Chapter 3. To avoid encounter with the Yamadutas, we must render devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chapter 4, sitting in everyone's heart as Paramatma, the Lord is constantly directing us, but being so conditioned, we are unable to see or understand the Supreme Soul. Chapter 5, one who is too involved in this material world and who doesn't look within the core of his heart gets more entangled in the illusory energy. Chapter 6, women are not meant for the renounced order of life, but if they have competent husband, they can be liberated as is there the pious credit of the husband. Chapter 7, by the strength of the Guru, one can become very powerful within this world, but if the Guru is displeased, one can lose everything. Chapter 8, if one recites the Narayan Kavacha, one can be protected from different kinds of problems, but for Vaishnavas, the Maha Mantra is most powerful. Chapter 9, mantras should be chanted correctly, otherwise there could be reverse consequences. And chapter 10, if we give something in charity to a beggar, if we can give something in charity to a beggar, we should not hesitate because we don't know the situation of the beggar. Chapter 11, we should follow the footsteps of the great devotees who are always ready to give up their life, which is simply a cause of bondage to this material world, which is designed for destruction. And chapter 12, the real qualification of a liberated soul is that he remains undisturbed by the action and reaction of the material nature. Chapter 13, if one knowingly commits sinful activities, then chant the holy name and try to counteract the sinful reaction, one commits the biggest sin. Chapter 14, a sage should be considered as a great guest and should be welcomed at one's residence with humility and should be offered proper hospitality. Chapter 15, when one understands one's spiritual identity and surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one becomes actually happy and doesn't lament for bodily relationships. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Naniben, you have...
Yes. Can you go back to chapter 9, please? The lesson for chapter 9? The previous page. Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Not women are not. No, this is other something on the beggar. Which one was it? 11.
Oh yeah, there was one. Yes, I heard that as well. Yeah, there is 9.
9.
Beggar.
Yes. I could. Yes, I don't understand that. If we give something in charity to a beggar, we should not hesitate. Hesitate about what? Because we don't know the situation of the beggar. I thought.
Yeah, we should not hesitate to give because sometimes when we see a beggar, we hesitate to give. But we don't know, we pray the Lord that we should always be at the end of giving, not at the end of asking. Because when somebody asks, they really need. And then we should not even talk about this person because we are not in their shoes. We don't know in what situation they are. So we should give. Like this come from the Rishi Muni, who did not hesitate to give his body, right, to the demigods because they wanted his body to make a weapon with. So he did not hesitate. He gave his body.
Yeah, the Rishi Muni I can understand, but they said that when you give a charity to a beggar, and if I'm talking about generally our beggar, which we see around us here, India mainly, and they said that if we give something to a person who is not worthy of it, we do not know, then it can everything will bounce back to us. If he uses his money for things like drugs or using alcohol, then
no, we have to show that discrimination. I don't think it's saying don't show the discrimination. It's just saying
discrimination should be shown. Yes, that is fine.
But Nani Bahan, if a beggar come to you mainly in India, as you said, I think we should give prasadam. We should buy, as Nabi Prabhu does, he buy fruits and he give. But we should not say, oh, I don't have anything, I'm not going to give. We should try to give something because we don't know why he is begging. So give food mostly, give prasadam.
Even before asking, even before we get asked, we give. I think that's the point that was being made. That's what the Dichu said to the demigods, that even before asking, we should just give. Because we don't know the position of the beggar. And even it says the other way around, right? The beggar should not ask from anyone because he doesn't know the position of the other person. So it works sort of both ways.
Both ways.
And now, coming to giving prasadam, we can do this if we are in a holy place, like when we go to somewhere and if we are eating and somebody asks, we say, fine, get him a dish, just a food or something. But if we are just on the roadside and they surround us when we're in the car going through, we get surrounded by the beggars. So
Yeah.
in that condition, I would not give, because I would not give. They're all, and if we give to one, another 10 will come there. So this is a very difficult thing for me to understand, like how to give charity to a beggar.
No, I think it's just when, like, I agree with you what you're saying, because if
I'll tell you when
it can take, it can be quite, you attract unnecessary attention, and suddenly, you got a lot of people around you. So you got to be a little careful. But I think it's just, it was just a point that
Just the principle.
the principle that don't wait to give.
Yes.
And this is actually what you do. I don't even ask, and you give. So this is your mood anyway.
It is. When we want to help them. And then one day, when we were in Ahmedabad in India, there was a mother and a woman sitting by the roadside, and I gave them 5 or 10 rupees notes. I don't know. They just took it. I just gave it without even asking. They didn't even look at me. I didn't even look at the money. They just fine. Somebody has given it. That's it. Okay.
Brilliant.
So
that's good. That's really good.
that was good. Yes, without asking. So we are always there to help. I mean, but it's this fear of what to do in such situation, whether we give or not.
But Naniban, when you are traveling mainly in India, where people ask a lot, I don't know, in UK sometimes people do ask, but we should be careful in UK, even in Canada. But in India, what I've learned about my couple of times visiting India, we get a bag full of like a prasad sweet. They're already packed in small packs, and then we just give them.
Yes, I just thought about that.
Yes,
that's what we do. Yes,
yeah, that's what we do all the time. We travel, and sometimes they will refuse. They will say no money. So we say no money, prasad.
Yes. That's a good idea, and that's what I just thought before you spoke.
Yes,
to get a situation to get out.
Haribol, I had an experience here in Coventry. Once we were doing food distribution, and then walking down, there was a beggar sitting there. So I nipped in the shop to get a cheese sandwich, and I came out and gave it to him, and he says, "No, I don't want a sandwich. I want a bed. I haven't had a sleep all night."
Oh man.
Then you feel, at least take this. If you are hungry, have this one.
Yeah.
So you get all sorts of situations.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
Nice, good discussion, and well remembered, Indulekha Maji, the Dachi, interesting character. Madhusan Babu?
Haribol, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about beggars, and we always refer to, I was in India and the beggar came to me and all that. But now we find that, beggars are everywhere, even in UK, there are more beggars here. Situations are turning around a bit, And like you say, you have to try and judge what the other person might be wanting, really. If you don't know what they actually want, then we are not in a good position to actually help, are we? It's actually, somebody's trying to drown and you're throwing him a banana or something like that, He wants to be rescued, throw him a lifeboat or something. But anyway, they still got the instructions as explained by Srila Prabhupada in the purport that, money belongs neither to one party nor to the other. And the money is always money, but in different situations, it can be used as an enemy or a friend. So sometimes even money is neutral, but due to the circumstance and the perspective, people can actually use it against or in a friendly way or whatever. Like you say, 20 pounds in the hand of a devotee is different from a 20 pound in the hand of a drug dealer. And so the living entity also, we are in the same situation where we have no true relationships with the material body. He gets with his material father or mother. And that's the instruction that, Chitraketu was getting from his son, that. So he is realizing from that, the real relationship is with the soul, but the body is not really what you relate with. But so living entities find themselves as friends or enemies of each other. And really, Prabhupada says in the purport, our main duty is to capture the opportunity to come in touch with Krishna conscious, Krishna's representative, and a bona fide spiritual master. And under the guidance of spiritual master, then the spiritual father is the one that, we need to relate with more and then return home back to Godhead. So that's a spiritual identity, spiritual father. That's the eternal relationship. Chapter 17, there's a subtle difference between an offense and a criticism, because here, obviously, when he criticized Lord Shiva and Parvati in that way, then that's more like criticism, but it's not really an offense, but still it was not called for, I suppose, because, even in a slightly puffed up position, thinking I'm devotee, I can make a comment like that, then there are consequences. So we should be careful to avoid both, like criticizing and committing offenses. So one should be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of Vaishnava, particularly, of whom Lord Shiva is the best. So while instructing, Sri Rupa Goswami Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava as a hati mata, like an elephant, a mad elephant, the Venaparad. So when a mad elephant enters a nice garden, it spoils the entire garden because it's so clumsy. It will trample over everything, and cause a damage. His entire garden. So like that, an offense can become like that. So we just got to be careful, be respectful to everyone, and not to really criticize. We're not in a position to condemn anyone, criticize anyone, complain about too many things. So those 3 C's are what we, what I stand for, like, So those are the instructions that I found prominent from those, but there could be many other instructions still relevant to all of us, but thank you, Haribol.
Thank you. It's really good. Really good.
I particularly like the subtle difference between an offense and a criticism. And we should be careful to avoid both. It's very true, because we always jump to the conclusion, isn't it? When we see something, jump to the conclusion. And then we start from there. So we should control our mind and use our intelligence not to avoid, or be careful to avoid both. So I like that quite a lot, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because we have a tendency to criticize. Obviously, within criticism as well, there's a positive criticism and a negative criticism. But I was always taught that you be like a sandwich. Say a good comment, make a good comment, then you can criticize or sort of point out some negative thing that you might have noticed, and then end it up with another good comment. So you package it in a nice way so people don't get offended. Ways of doing things. But anyway, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
You missed the last instruction. We didn't read it out.
What was that?
It is to be understood. Last instruction.
Oh, you read it.
Can you mute it, kids? It is to be understood that Mother Durga was justified in punishing Chitraketu for his criticism. This punishment was a boon to Chitraketu because after taking birth as a demon, Vitsasura, he was promoted directly to Vaikuntha.
Yes.
Haribol.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I couldn't see it on my screen, so I thought it was yeah, because I had my phone the landscape view. So okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh yes, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So we'll